The best creative is the stuff where you go, you can't do that, or that'll never happen, it's too hard. All the stuff that cuts through. It has a big idea at the heart of it.
Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of The Winning Formula, and I'm really excited to be joined by Andy Clough, a creative director whose work will need no introduction. But as for the man himself, Andy, over to you.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I'm Andy, creative director. Been working since 1997 in advertising with my creative partner Richard McGran, and we've been at a lot of really good agencies. We've been lucky, we've worked at a lot of great agencies through from YNR, Rainey Kelly, BBH, AMV, Adam and Eve. Most recently, we were joint ECDs at Neverland. Now we're freelancing around just to get some more big ideas out there.
We at Gig Health, we specialise in one sector, we're healthcare, but I imagine your work has taken you all around the houses, including health. I just thought it would be great if we could start by getting a sense of just how broad a canvas you and Rich work on when you're coming up with your ideas. Like, what are some of the healthcare clients? Sure, but what are some of the others?
Yeah, we've done work in every sector, really. We've done a lot of charity. We've filled holes with pot noodle. We've fed Snickers to Rowan Atkinson as a ninja, which was really fun. And we've just done everything that you can sort of think of.
From my position looking at yours, where I'm always thinking about regulators and lawyers and everyone having a go at our work, I always feel, as I look over to consumer agencies, they must be having all kinds of fun throwing ridiculous stuff at the walls and seeing what sticks. But I imagine you do have a discipline and a process, much as we do, and that there's a lot of hard graft behind your process. So, you know, when you're working in healthcare versus when you're working for ideas for consumer brands, is there any difference to your process?
There wouldn't be any difference to the process the way we work. We always try and approach it to come up with the big idea. We do have rules and regs. You know, there's certain things we can say, we can't say, you know, especially if you're working on things like, you know, like Burger King, KFC versus and Snickers, what you can say, whether it's you're working on like Lucozade and you can't say gives you energy. So we do have rules and stuff. For me, though, it's about bravery. We probably have some less rules than you do. But I feel that the best creative is the stuff where you go, you can't do that. They'll never buy that, or that'll never happen. It's too hard. Too much effort, and all the best stuff and all the stuff that cuts through. I mean, it has a big idea at the heart of it, but it's hard to do. You know, I don't think there's anything that's an easy idea that's been brilliant. When you think about award shows like Cannes, which has arguably become the biggest award show on the planet, they're looking for work that does push the boundaries. Sometimes you look at it and go, have they done that? Have they got away with that? How have they been managed to say that? And that's the type of work that can rewards bravery, I guess, and different ways of thinking.
Coming to healthcare, coming to our neck of the woods, you know, I wonder if you could just talk us through one of the campaigns or big ideas that you're proudest of.
Yeah, sure. I think the bravest campaign and the one I'm really most proud of, or we're most proud of, is the last photo for Calm.
So this is the one where it was the last photo or the last clip of actual people who then took their lives before making another photo or another selfie video. Really, that was it, wasn't it? That was the simplest of executions, but devastatingly powerful. I wonder if we could just go into, you know, what gave you that idea?
Yeah, I mean, the original brief was about spotting the signs. And the more that we researched it, you know, us and the strategists and stuff like that, you realise that there aren't really any signs unless someone, yes, if they've got depression, you can spot the signs. But when someone has decided that they're going to take their own life, all of a sudden it's that weight's lifted off their shoulders. They can see a way out. They become a happier persona. So there aren't really any signs. In fact, it's the opposite. These people feel like they're all right. They're out going jogging again. They're out fishing. They're out doing that. But sadly, then there's an end to it.
And did you want to do it with real people, or was that a decision you took after thinking, well, we could go the actor route, but wouldn't it be more powerful if?
We were never going to go the actor route. The power and the bravery is being able to ask the families, can we have literally the last photo of your loved ones, or the last footage of your loved ones before they took their own life?
Also some bravery, though, in taking a campaign that potentially provocative and saying to a client who works with people affected by suicide all the time, saying, you know, we want to really get into this. That must have been nerve-wracking, or did you have a client that was particularly receptive?
Simon at Calm is an incredible client, and Matt, they're always wanting brave work because they need stuff that cuts through, because it's as a charity, they don't have much money, so they need really brave work. The previous campaign was Project 84, where they put the statues on top, looked like men were about to jump off the building. And that was a bar as well. Creatively, there's always a bar. I remember seeing that work and thought, oh, God, I'm never going to be able to do something like that. So we knew we had a brave client, and it's a client who always wants brave work. Now, not all clients want brave work, but maybe inside some clients do, and they just don't get that work. Calm have an amazing relationship with people whose loved ones have taken their own lives, and they just asked, how they would feel about it, what they think the reaction would be, and whether they would be willing to release that. When you think about it, this is the most precious thing to these families that they've got. It is literally the last bit of footage or the last photo of their loved one before they took their own life. And to release that into the public, for many reasons that they might not want it out there, to do that, I think the client was brave. The real brave people were the families. When we had the exhibition on the South Bank, and we had 50 photographs at the time, there happened to be a bench in the middle of the exhibition, like just opposite, and I went like 4 or 5 times. So I sat there watching people go through, and they're like, oh, no, and then they see the poster. And to see the visceral reaction when they first read that thing, it literally blew my mind. And then they would go back through the exhibition, and then they'd realise there's QR codes. Countless people came up to Calm representatives and said, this is exactly how I feel at the exhibition.
So when you've got the relatives of people who've taken their lives saying, I want to be part of this campaign because if it helps just one person,
yeah.
And there you are, they could have gone to the South Bank and seen it for themselves. I'm sure some of them did.
I mean, I don't know how they worked it out, but through the type of phone calls they received and the interactions that Calm received, they reckon it probably saved just that campaign alone 116 lives.
I think there's a sometimes exaggerated but often real culture of conservatism in healthcare marketing, particularly with branded stuff, but it bleeds into disease awareness and areas where you can be more adventurous. What advice would you give to a creative like me in that space as to how to make the case for bravery, why bravery still counts, even when sometimes the topics are sensitive?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you got to remember is that, the general public aren't really bothered about looking at your stuff. So actually, for a client, they need to be braver. I don't think it's just bravery for shock's sake. Sometimes having a really tight brief, as long as for me there's a fact or something you can talk about, then there should be an idea in that. I think a lot of clients try to overcomplicate, and actually the problem is, I think with a lot of clients, they try and tell you too much. So I'd stick to a very, very simple fact and tell it me in the most interesting way possible.
So you're saying you manage the client who believes that they have a 5-point message flow to get through in this video, and ask them to figure out what the one must take away piece is.
Yeah, and what people don't take things in like they used to. You've got 6 seconds to probably to get someone's attention now. So yeah, tell me what you want, but wrap it up into something interesting, or tell me something different about it. I mean, there's so much stuff now in healthcare that probably all looks, to you especially, probably all looks the same. They're all saying the same message. Just tell me something different in an interesting way.
I know the feeling where you have a client that has a shopping list of things that they want their campaign to say, and you maybe have to help them towards the realization that the one call to action is this, and everything else can be part of a conversation that follows. Give us an example then of a time when you've worked for a client that could have gone on till Christmas with their talking points, but you helped them to focus in on something simple.
Yeah, that would be Matt Millen, actually. Really powerful ad. Now, it could have been a list of everything they do, but we had this line that's whatever it takes, and it's about their nurses and how their nurses go above and beyond and do everything. That's for me the North Star. It's the nurses will do all this. So yes, we did show different scenes, but it was wrapped up in a narrative of what the nurses do.
I'm sure most people watching this will actually recognise it. It has been on the side of buses. It's been on TVs. I always make a half joke in job interviews at gig. I say this is the wrong place to go if you want to phone up your mum and tell them that your work's in the X Factor ad break. But I think yours probably was at one point for Macmillan. The Whatever It Takes campaign was really successful. So where did it come from? What was the big idea behind that? Because I think it's your agency that came up with the Whatever It Takes line.
Yeah, it was the pitch winning line, Whatever It Takes. And it's based on the one thing that Macmillan have got, are the incredible, not just the one thing, but the main thing they've got is their nursing and the way they care for people. So we did show all the duty of care that they do. But instead of saying, we do X and we do Y and we do that, which would have ripped the soul out of it, we actually show that the pivotal role the nurses played. It drew you into the film. It drew you into the emotional roller coaster, I guess, of the happy times and the really sad times, but with always that knowingness that the nurses are always there for you.
So the approach you took was cinematic, right? It was, let's make a movie. What was the kind of rationale there versus, let's give people 6 seconds of statement and move on? You went big.
We really wanted to show what the nurses do, and we wanted to put people with this, like I said before, the roller coaster of emotions. The director, Jonathan, was very keen on shooting it 4:3 because it's really intimate, because it sort of closes you in. It makes you look. And there was not really any wide shots apart from the dancing nurse. Everything was sort of mid-shot and stuff. So it really drew you into the people, and you really felt their emotions and what they're going through. And it made you then, therefore, really focus on the incredible job that these nurses do.
One thing we spoke about with Calm was it was as effective as it was because it was using real people. Whereas Macmillan, you went the actor route, which blew my mind in the light of the performance that little girl gives. Tell us why, for Calm it was one way, and for Macmillan you decided to go with, professional actors.
Yeah, well, it's Macmillan's duty of care, really, because they don't want to put people in their commercials that have suffered from cancer because it could bring back trauma. But what we did do, we used real Macmillan nurses within the spot so that the actions they were doing was genuine.
Fantastic. So when we work with live action productions, we're talking maybe 12, 15 people on a set. I'm imagining, looking at the Whatever It Takes campaign, that this was on a slightly different level.
Yeah, it was north of 50, probably closer to 100-ish. I'd say between 50 and 100, yeah.
I guess the lesson for smaller teams like my own there is that if you want to go big with your productions, you better make sure you have that really rock solid idea and the confidence to express it to the client.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've shot Agile as well, but actually with this, because of the way it was lit, the way that it just needed a bigger crew, basically.
The other thing that struck me about that campaign particularly, and Calm too, is the use of music. When you're telling a story, it's multi-sensory. You've got to be absolutely everywhere, and the soundtrack there is really critical, isn't it? So what do you look for, and how do you look for it when you're thinking about the soundtrack to your ideas?
Yeah, I mean, music is massive. It's at least 50% of the film. With Calm, Bring Me Sunshine is all about happiness, and actually, when you listen to the lyrics as well, it was actually beautiful. But where we struggled a little bit was that we were trying to put all these slightly somber-y remixes on that. And then our ECD at the time, Mike, he got sent the editor stuff it was a cappella, and he went, oh, let's try that. So you put it on, and all of a sudden, because before we were watching this footage, knowing it was the last photos of people in the edit suite, and we're going, why are we not feeling anything? And I don't mean that in that sort of, we weren't being disrespectful. We're going, well, why aren't we feeling that these? And it wasn't because we knew what this footage was. As soon as we put that track on it, like that, all of a sudden we was like, oh my God. And we were like tearing up. And the same with Macmillan. To be fair, Jonathan said he loved this Max Richards track in his treatment, but we could only get it for 6 months. But boy, that track just makes you feel. If anything shows the difference of music and how much it makes, look at that version and look at the version that's on TV now. And I don't mean any disrespect to the agency for what they put on, because they've had to try and find a piece of music that is similar. But similar, it doesn't give you the same feels.
Actually, that's an excellent example. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but both versions are still available. And I'd encourage anyone YouTubing whatever it takes Macmillan, to wait until they hear the version with the strings that start dun, 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 and then watch the other version, which is more easy to find, and just see how differently you feel when you're watching it. And all that's different, shot for shot, it's identical. All that's different is the mood of the music underneath.
Yeah. I mean, they've also added, because the ad's called Tender and Tough, and they have added We're Tender, We're Tough, because the original version did have talked about that the nurses are tender when they need to be, but they're also tough. They'll move you in your bed, even though it's sore, because it's best for you. I always find it's better to find music when you've got an edit. It's all very well where clients go, oh, I want to listen to the music, I want to hear the music. Goes, yeah, you can, but you can listen to it, but we don't know what it's going to be. We've done it where we thought we was going to put an electronic ad on an Audi spot for the R8 years ago, and we ended up with a folk tune, and it just completely made it so much different.
One thing that we're finding is that as attention spans get shorter and as touch points get more and more diffuse, so you've got to be everywhere, people are actually getting more of an appetite for stuff that smacks you in the face when you first see it. Is that true everywhere? Because it's a breath of fresh air in healthcare.
Yeah, be more interesting. Just be more interesting, because the more interesting you are, then the more likely people are going to want to engage with your brand and stay with that brand through the 30 seconds, the 60 seconds, or whatever time length that you've got.
I like to say that just because you have to be responsible doesn't mean you have to be boring in healthcare. And I think the work that you do, bringing your kind of outsider, generalist bravery into healthcare, is proof of that. So I would encourage anyone who's watching this to look up the Campaign Against Living Miserably's last photo campaign and Macmillan's Whatever It Takes campaign, and just see what is possible in healthcare when you have that big idea and you really commit to it. Andy, for that work and for joining us today, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.